All right, you fantastic folks, welcome back to Fandom Frenzy. Get ready to dive deep because today we're plunging headfirst into the zombie-infested, drama-fueled streets of Manhattan in The Walking Dead, Dead City Season 2. It's kind of good to be back in that chaotic New York nightmare, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The whole vibe of that ruined city, crawling with walkers and these really twisted personalities, it was such a hook last season.
It really was.
And yeah, from what we've seen so far, the power struggles are just getting, well, wilder.
You got it. So what exactly are we geeking out about today? We've sunk our teeth into the first 3 episodes of Season 2. You got power equals power, another S lesson, and why did the mainlanders cross the river?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to dissect all the juicy bits involving our favorite, let's call them a dysfunctional duo, Maggie and Negan. Their relationship, let's be real, is more tangled than a horde of walkers trying to get through a revolving door.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Their uneasy alliance last season, which was basically born from pure necessity, right? That was the core of the show.
Totally.
So now, seeing them potentially on opposite sides of an even bigger fight, it just raises a ton of questions. Where do their true loyalties lie? How is all that complicated history going to play out?
Exactly. Okay, before we jump into the new stuff, let's do a quick trip down memory lane.
Right.
Season 1, it was all about Maggie's desperate hunt, finding her son, Herschel, who'd been snatched,
Right.
and who was her, let's say, reluctant partner in navigating that walker-choked version of the Big Apple.
The one and only Negan.
The one and only. Remember how that went down?
Oh, yeah. That pairing was pure dramatic gold. I mean, the history between them, all that raw pain and anger, it just made every single interaction crackle with tension.
Yeah.
And they weren't just battling walkers, they were up against the Croat. He was a seriously unsettling guy.
Oh, yeah. Creepy.
Definitely. And he controlled this massive walker herd and, crucially, that methane-based power source.
And the Crota, he was answering to someone even higher up the food chain.
Yeah.
This mysterious and pretty chilling character known as the Dama.
The Dama.
Season 1 just left us hanging, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like Negan seemingly making some kind of deal with the Dama.
Yeah.
And Maggie still miles away from actually rescuing Herschel.
Mhm.
We were all just left wondering, what was Negan playing at? And would Maggie ever get her son back?
And that unresolved tension, that's really what makes the start of season 2 so compelling. That shaky truce, those hidden agendas, none of it was truly settled.
Yep.
The finale just cranked up the dial for an even more intricate power struggle in Manhattan.
Okay, so let's dive into Season 2. Kicking things off with Episode 1, the fittingly titled Power Equals Power. Right off the bat, we see Maggie and Negan find themselves on opposing sides in this battle for control of Manhattan. Things have definitely taken a turn since we last saw them.
Oh, they absolutely have. We jump forward a whole year.
Oh, year.
Yeah. And when we reconnect with Maggie and Herschel, they're living in this community called the Bricks. But what's really interesting here is their forced alliance, basically. A trade agreement with this group calling themselves the New Babylon Federation. New Babylon.
Yeah, it feels like a very different kind of post-apocalyptic society than we've, seen before.
Which makes you immediately think, okay, New Babylon. Who are these guys?
Yeah.
And maybe more importantly, why didn't Maggie try to link up with, Alexandria? Or the Commonwealth?
Right. Places she knows.
Places where she actually has friends and, a serious arsenal. It's a question a lot of us were probably yelling at our screens.
It is a valid question, yeah. This show kind of suggests that New Babylon has the ability to, cut off trade partners, even those bigger established communities.
How?
Well, how they wield that kind of influence is definitely something to consider, right? Maybe they control vital resources or key trade routes in the wider area. It's not totally clear yet, but it puts Maggie in a really tough spot. She's seemingly cornered into this alliance.
So it sounds like Maggie and Herschel are in a pretty vulnerable position. This alliance, it doesn't feel like, sunshine and rainbows.
Not at all. It seems like New Babylon is calling the shots, and their eyes are firmly set on Manhattan's methane resources, walkers, and energy. You got to appreciate the twisted ingenuity of it all, right?
Absolutely. This episode really establishes New Babylon as a major player. And Maggie's clear discomfort with them, it sets up a fascinating dynamic. She's potentially caught between protecting her own people and, the ever-present threat of the Dama lurking over in Manhattan.
Speaking of the Dama, we find out Negan has been her prisoner for a year.
A whole year.
That's a long time to be stuck with such a unique individual. You have to wonder what kind of mind games have been going on.
It is a long time. And we soon learn why he's still in her clutches. The Dama is using Annie and Joshua as leverage.
Yeah.
To force Negan's cooperation. Initially, he resists, he tries to push back, but the threat to his family, that ultimately pushes him to agree to help the Dama. It's a stark reminder that even Negan, with all his bravado, has people he cares deeply about.
Okay, here's where things get really wild. The Croat, in this, truly theatrical move, brings Negan, his old friend, Lucille,
Yeah.
but with a shocking upgrade. Lucille 2.0, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Electrified and ready to rumble.
Oh, yeah.
And the Crota even throws in a line about, giving the audience what they want, which feels like a little wink and a nod to us viewers, don't you think?
Oh, it's definitely a meta moment, acknowledging the audience's attachment to that iconic weapon.
Totally.
And the return of Lucille, now supercharged, it kind of hints at a potential shift back to a more, let's say, familiar Negan, even if it's under duress. And yeah, the Croat's comment just adds this layer of self-awareness to the show's storytelling.
And the final scene of that episode, man, Epic doesn't even cover it. Negan, after this kind of half-hearted attempt at reason that goes exactly how you'd expect.
Right, falls flat.
Yeah, he grabs Lucille 2.0 and just delivers this speech. It felt like we were transported right back to his savior days, that charismatic but, terrifying leader making a comeback.
It was a powerful scene, yeah. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan absolutely nailed that reemergence of his old self, even if it is fueled by coercion.
Right.
And the electrified Lucille just amplifies the brutality, reminding everyone of the danger he's capable of unleashing. It leaves you questioning, is this a genuine regression, or is it a calculated act to survive?
Good question. We also get a clearer picture of New Babylon's whole obsession with Manhattan. It's all about that methane power.
Right.
Turning walkers into electricity. You have to admit, there's a certain, macabre brilliance to it, even if it raises some practical questions.
It fits perfectly within the Walking Dead universe, though, doesn't it? Taking a fantastical element and exploring its potential practical applications, no matter how grim.
True.
And the methane adds this compelling resource conflict to the narrative. It gives both sides a tangible reason to fight for control of the city.
Switching gears a bit, we see Maggie teaching Herschel how to throw knives, which is, a classic Walking Dead survival skill. A little nod to those early seasons.
Yeah, nice little callback.
But there's this palpable tension between Maggie and Herschel, isn't there? He seems pretty closed off.
He really does. Herschel seems resentful. He just wants to be left alone. It hints at the deep scars left by his kidnapping and, everything that happened in the past year.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even with a time jump, those emotional wounds don't just vanish. Their relationship is clearly still fractured.
Oh, yeah. And there were a couple of little Easter eggs that eagle-eyed fans probably caught. Negan mentions Maggie tearing someone's throat out with her teeth.
Whoa.
Which felt like a direct callback to that super intense scene with Rick and the Claimers way back in the Yay episode.
Oh, wow, yeah. That was a definite nod to longtime viewers, highlighting the shared history and the extreme violence these characters have been through. It's a subtle way of connecting the past and present.
And there was also maybe a little wink to the comic book fans about Negan's pre-apocalypse life as a gym teacher.
Right. Little details like that.
It's those little details that reward the dedicated watchers,
Exactly. Those small references to the source material can add another layer of enjoyment for the comic readers while offering interesting tidbits for people who only know the show. It just enriches the overall lore.
And finally, Maggie sees a moth, which is interpreted as a symbol of an ending and a new beginning. It feels like a visual representation of the huge changes she's facing, her forced alliance with New Babylon, the unknown dangers waiting for her back in Manhattan.
Symbolism has always been a part of The Walking Dead, hasn't it? And the moth serves as this poignant reminder of transition and the constant cycle of survival and loss in this world. Endings often precede new and potentially more perilous chapters.
All right, let's move on to episode 2, another S lesson. The title itself kind of hints at more brutal learning experiences coming up.
Yeah, doesn't sound gentle.
Not at all. The synopsis tells us Maggie starts her perilous journey back to Manhattan, and Negan reluctantly joins the fray. This episode definitely amps up the tension.
It does, immediately. The opening scene with Negan and Victor, the violin player, it creates this instant feeling of dread. There's this genuine warmth between them, right? A fleeting moment of human connection in this desolate world, which, as any Walking Dead fan knows, that's usually the calm before the storm.
You just knew something terrible was about to happen, and then, boom, the Dama kills Victor. It was a shocking and Really unsettling scene, especially with that haunting violin music playing.
Hmm.
What was the motivation behind that brutal act?
Well, the Dama's reasoning seemed pretty clear. She was punishing Negan for hesitating, for showing compassion, possibly towards Herschel or maybe others.
Okay.
And the crow, ever the loyal snitch,
Always watching.
always watching. He was quick to inform the Dama of Negan's perceived weakness. It was just a chilling reminder of the Dama's ruthlessness and her absolute control over Negan. Like, any flicker of humanity is met with swift and brutal reprisal.
It was seriously creepy. The way she just casually ended him with that pen. Definitely solidified the Dama as a truly menacing villain.
Agreed.
Meanwhile, New Babylon is making their move, trying to cross the river into Manhattan. Maggie tries to warn them about the dangers, but do they listen?
Predictably, not entirely. Maggie's past experience in Manhattan gives her this crucial understanding of the threats waiting for them, right?
Yeah.
But Major Lucia seems to kind of disregard her warnings. Parley Armstrong, however, he appears to have more faith in Maggie's judgment, so that creates a bit of internal friction within the New Babylon group.
And Maggie's warnings turn out to be tragically spot on. The Croat unleashes his nasty surprises, Walker bombs in the water,
Yeah.
against New Babylon's boats.
Yeah, that was intense.
It was complete pandemonium, walkers and explosions everywhere. Talk about a rough commute.
It was a brutal and effective attack. It really showcased the Croat's strategic mind and his inventive use of the undead as weapons. The walker-infested waters become just another terrifying obstacle for New Babylon. It highlights the unique dangers of this ravaged city.
And amidst all that chaos, Maggie and Herschel end up getting captured on the boat.
Yep.
Just when you thought they might catch a break.
Yeah.
It's like the universe just has it out for them sometimes.
Well, their capture definitely raises the stakes even higher. Herschel is in danger, again, and Maggie's desperate mission to protect him becomes even more complicated. Plus, it puts them directly in the crosshairs of the Dama and her forces.
And we also saw Governor Byrd of New Babylon meet a pretty gruesome end during that river crossing attack.
Right.
So the leadership of New Babylon has already taken a hit. That could have some serious ripple effects down the line.
Definitely. The death of Governor Byrd creates this power vacuum within New Babylon, which could lead to internal struggles for control, maybe make them more vulnerable as they try to establish themselves in Manhattan.
And in a really significant moment, Negan sees Herschel on the boat, and he hesitates.
Yeah, he pauses.
And the Croat, of course, doesn't miss this flicker of recognition or concern. It's clear that Negan's connection to Maggie and her son hasn't completely faded, despite everything.
That pause speaks volumes, doesn't it? It shows that despite his forced alliance with the Dama, Negan still has some lingering empathy, maybe even a sense of responsibility towards Maggie and Herschel. And the Croat noticing it, that just sets up potential future conflict for Negan.
Adding another layer to the mix, the Dama's group manages to capture Benjamin.
Right, from New Babylon.
Yeah. It seems they're determined to squeeze information out of him, which could spell serious trouble for New Babylon and potentially Maggie's community, too.
Benjamin's capture gives the Dama a potential intelligence advantage, right? A way to gain insight into New Babylon's plans and weaknesses. It adds another layer of suspense and danger to this whole escalating conflict.
It was a small but really touching moment, too, where Maggie sees Herschel tending to someone's leg wound.
Oh, yeah.
And it brought back memories of her father, Herschel Green, and the compassion he always showed. It's a nice little character beat, reminding us of Maggie's roots and the values she fights to uphold.
Those moments of quiet reflection are so important in a show like this, I think. They ground the characters and remind us of the humanity they're desperately trying to preserve amidst all the brutality and loss. And yeah, the connection to her father underscores that legacy of care that Maggie carries.
Okay, let's wade into Episode 3. Why did the mainlanders cross the river? Now, we're going off some early buzz for this one, so details might be a little less concrete.
Right, early access stuff.
Yeah. But it sounds like things take a, let's just say, an unexpected turn.
Indeed. This episode apparently involves the New Babylon group venturing into Central Park, and they encounter a brand new group of survivors.
Okay.
And the descriptions are, well, they're certainly memorable. Think crazy savages with bad costumes who like to sing and seem generally out of touch with reality. Yeah. It's a real curveball compared to the more sort of grounded conflicts we've seen so far.
Crazy savages with a musical number. You've got to hand it to the Walking Dead universe. They always find new ways to surprise us. Okay, so some viewers apparently found this introduction a bit jarring, even calling it pointless or filler.
Yeah, seems like it.
while others maybe appreciated the change of pace and seeing a different kind of survivor group. What did you make of it, based on the buzz?
The reaction seems to be quite divided, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some might see it as a detour from the main narrative, like you said, filler, while others might find it a welcome exploration of the diverse ways people adapt or maybe don't adapt so well to the apocalypse. It certainly raises questions about the spectrum of mental states in such extreme circumstances.
Apparently, Herschel is with Negan in this episode. And there's a scene where Negan actually saves Herschel.
Oh, interesting.
That's a dynamic we haven't seen much of, considering their history. Talk about awkward family reunions.
That interaction could be a significant turning point in their complicated relationship. Negan saving Herschel could create this strange sort of debt or obligation, maybe, further blurring the lines of their shared trauma.
Yeah.
It also hints that Negan's protective instincts might extend beyond just Annie and Joshua.
And speaking of complicated, Herschel apparently tries to take a shot at someone, heavily implying it's Negan.
Whoa.
But his aim is less than stellar. Teenage angst meets the zombie apocalypse, I guess.
Well, it reinforces Herschel's internal turmoil, right? He's clearly carrying a lot of anger and resentment. And his actions suggest this desire for revenge, even if he lacks the skill or perhaps the true conviction to follow through.
There are also mentions of flashbacks involving Herschel and the Dama. This could shed some light on any potential deals or, manipulations that might be happening behind the scenes.
Oh, okay.
The theories about Herschel being more involved than he seems have been swirling since last season.
These flashbacks could provide crucial context for Herschel's behavior and motivations. Yeah. They might reveal the extent of the Dama's influence over him and whether he's acting on his own or just as a pawn in her larger game. It definitely adds another layer of mystery to his character.
Tragically, Herschel meets a girl named Joan in this episode, who ends up dying and turning.
Oh, man.
And Maggie's emotional reaction to seeing her as a walker was apparently quite powerful. It's just a constant reminder of the heartbreaking losses they endure.
Yeah, the introduction and swift loss of a seemingly innocent character like Joan, it often serves to underscore the brutality of this world and the emotional toll it takes on the survivors. Maggie's reaction just highlights that recurring trauma and the inescapable nature of loss in their lives.
Some viewers have also raised eyebrows about the timeline in this episode, particularly regarding the age of a girl on a mentioned fourth-grade trip. It seems like the math might not quite add up with how far into the apocalypse they are. Little details like that can sometimes pull you out of the moment.
Timeline inconsistencies have been a bit of a recurring theme in the wider Walking Dead universe, haven't they? And this seems to be another instance that has caught the attention of viewers who are meticulous about the established chronology.
Overall, it sounds like episode 3 has generated a more diverse range of opinions compared to the first two. Some found it weaker, maybe filler like we said, while others appreciated the introduction of something completely new, no matter how strange.
Yeah.
There were even a few grumbles about the audio quality, apparently.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the varying reactions highlight the challenge of maintaining a consistent tone and quality across a long-running franchise. Introducing unusual survivor groups can be a risk. It can either add a fresh element or feel tonally out of sync, depending on how it's executed.
One thing that's being questioned is why Herschel wouldn't be more proficient with a gun, given his upbringing in this world.
Right, you'd think.
Yeah. The scarcity of ammunition has been suggested as a possible reason. What do you think?
That's a logical explanation, I suppose. While he's grown up in the apocalypse, actual access to firearms and consistent training might still be limited, especially in a community like the Bricks, which doesn't seem as heavily armed as some of the other groups we've encountered. Ammo's got to be scarce.
True. And apparently, the Dama has a sweet elevator room. I'm not entirely sure what that entails, but given her vibe,
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a relaxing spa day.
No. Any description of the Dama's personal space as sweet likely carries a heavy dose of irony, or foreshadows something unsettling or manipulative. It definitely adds to her mystique as a villain.
There's also a moment where walkers seemingly ignore Maggie and her group, leading to some sarcastic comments online about, the walkers evolving or the show bending the rules when it's convenient. We've all been there, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. The consistency of walker behavior has been a long-standing point of discussion among fans. Instances where they seem to act inconsistently with established norms can sometimes take viewers out of the immersion. It happens.
The episode wraps up with Maggie and Jenny heading towards New York City and Herschel following after them. So, despite the detour into Central Park weirdness.
Yeah.
It looks like the main storyline is still pushing forward.
Yeah, it sets the stage for the next part of the season, with Maggie, Jenny, and Herschel all converging on the central conflict in Manhattan. Their individual motivations and potential reunions with Negan will likely drive the upcoming episodes.
Now let's zoom out a bit, talk about the cast, the bigger picture plot, and some of the fan theories buzzing around after these initial episodes. Obviously, Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohan are back as Negan and Maggie, the heart and soul of this whole twisted story.
Absolutely. Their performances continue to be a major draw. They bring so much depth and complexity to these iconic characters. The weight of their shared past and their individual struggles is just palpable in every scene they share.
We've also seen the return of some fantastic supporting actors, like Hilchko Ivanek as the Croat who just oozes unsettling energy,
He really does.
and the always formidable Lisa Emery as the Dama. Herschel is back, played by Logan Kim. And we've been introduced to some interesting new faces like Ginny, played by Mahina Napoleon, and Pearlie Armstrong, brought to life by Michael Anthony. This ensemble cast really makes this dangerous world feel real.
The supporting cast adds crucial layers to the narrative, offering different perspectives on survival and the various power dynamics at play in this ruined city. Characters like the Croat and the Dama bring this unique and chilling brand of villainy to the Walking Dead universe.
The overarching story, as it's shaping up, seems to be this intense three-way dance, right, between the Dama's group, the imposing New Babylon, and, in a way, Maggie's own community, all fighting for control of Manhattan and its valuable methane resources. And, of course, Negan's loyalties are still a big question mark, and Maggie is fiercely determined to protect Herschel.
It's a multi-layered conflict with no easy answers in sight. You've got the Dama, representing this brutal and theatrical kind of control. New Babylon embodies a more organized but potentially oppressive force. And Maggie is driven by that fierce maternal instinct and a desire for some semblance of a future for her son.
Right.
And Negan's unpredictable position right in the middle of all this just adds a significant element of suspense.
And, we can't talk about any Walking Dead show without diving into the fan theories. One popular one is that Herschel might be under the Dama's influence, or has even struck some kind of deal with her. His secretive behavior is definitely fueling that fire. What do you think?
Herschel's actions and those hints of flashbacks with the Dama, they strongly suggest that there's more to his story than we currently know. Whether he's been coerced, manipulated, or maybe has made a calculated decision for his own reasons, that remains to be seen. But he's clearly a key piece in the Dama's puzzle.
The creepy painting, too. Saturn devouring his son that we've seen in the Dama's lair. That sparked some interesting theories, especially about potential connections to the Daryl Dixon spinoff, given the painting's presence in Madrid.
Oh, right.
Could this be a little breadcrumb hinting at a future crossover?
The choice of that specific artwork and its real-world location in Madrid, it certainly raises the possibility of a connection to the European setting of the Daryl Dixon show. Whether it's a direct plot link or simply like a thematic resonance, that's something we'll have to keep an eye on.
There's also been some chatter about Annie and Joshua. Are they truly in danger, or is the Dama just using them as emotional leverage against Negan? Some viewers aren't entirely convinced they're actually being held captive.
That uncertainty surrounding Annie and Joshua's fate, it definitely adds to the tension surrounding Negan's choices. It forces him to make decisions based on limited information, right? And the possibility of the Dama bluffing is certainly a valid point to consider.
And of course, the big question that always lingers with Maggie and Negan, their ever-evolving, incredibly complex relationship. While a romantic comedy is probably out of the question.
Probably not, no.
Some fans have even theorized about a potential domestic partnership, like a pragmatic alliance that might even involve let's say a deeper connection. Maybe even with Negan still hearing Lucille's whispers in his mind. It's a wild ride of theories out there.
Their relationship is so layered. It's gone through so many dramatic shifts. A purely romantic development seems unlikely, given their history, but a deeper, more pragmatic connection, built on shared survival and perhaps even a grudging respect. That isn't out of the realm of possibility. The lingering emotional baggage and Negan's inner turmoil only add to the potential for dramatic and maybe even slightly awkward moments.
Finally, even though it hasn't happened in these first few episodes, the possibility of other familiar faces from the Walking Dead universe popping up always looms, doesn't it?
It's always.
It's a big world. But these characters have a funny way of finding each other.
The interconnected nature of the spin-offs definitely leaves the door open for potential crossovers down the line. Although, the current focus seems firmly on Maggie and Negan's story in Manhattan. Any future appearances from other beloved characters would likely have significant implications for the overarching narrative.
So as we wrap up our initial thoughts on these first 3 episodes, what's your overall take? Are we hooked? Are we scratching our heads? Or somewhere wonderfully in between?
Based on what we've seen in the fan reactions, it feels like a bit of a mixed bag, honestly, but with a lot of potential. The character dynamics, especially Negan's reluctant return to that darker persona, are definitely intriguing.
Yeah.
And the introduction of New Babylon as a significant new power player is compelling. However, some of the narrative choices, like the Central Park group and the introduction of seemingly tangential elements, have drawn some criticism.
Yeah, you definitely see that split in opinions. Some fans are finding it a solid continuation with a lot of promise, while others are questioning the realism maybe and the overall direction compared to the original series.
Yeah.
The Walker bombs, some of the logic, it's all part of the unpredictable Walking Dead ride, I suppose.
Ultimately, these early episodes have laid the groundwork for some key questions that will likely drive the rest of the season. What are Negan's true loyalties? What choices will Herschel make? What are the full intentions and capabilities of New Babylon? And what will ultimately become of this fractured version of Manhattan? The tension is definitely building.
Absolutely. And despite any lingering questions, there's still that pull, isn't there? That curiosity to see where this all leads.
Yeah.
The complicated history between Maggie and Negan,
Yeah.
the dangerous new adversaries. It's a recipe for some seriously intense drama in the episodes to come.
Couldn't agree more. The stage is set for a season filled with difficult choices, potential betrayals, and the constant struggle for survival in a city teeming with both the living and the dead.
Well, that's our deep dive into the opening chapters of The Walking Dead. Dead City Season 2, right here on Fandom Frenzy. Thanks for geeking out with us today. We want to hear all your thoughts. What are your wildest theories? What moments in these first 3 episodes had you on the edge of your seat? Head over to our socials and let us know.
And as you ponder the fate of Manhattan and the intertwined destinies of Maggie and Negan, consider this. Given their history, given these new power players in the mix, what are the toughest choices you think they might be forced to make down the line? What kind of future, if any, can actually be forged in that concrete graveyard?
Ooh, some serious food for thought right there. Until our next Fandom Frenzy, keep those theories coming and stay
Well, you know.
frenzied.